As we get ready for this upcoming trading week, are memory stocks ready to rally? That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. We're going to talk about Micron, SK Hynix, Samsung, all of them. We'll also talk about them in the context of the overall broader market and the pretty significant sell-off we had towards the end of last week, the impact on all of our memory stocks and all that and everything. Ultimately, with the goal of just helping you understand what's going on so that you can create more value, create more profit in your stock trading and roll into this coming week with kind of a better feeling of what we're going to see and play out. Okay, so let's take a look at overall what we've got coming up. So are we going to see a rally this week? I want to start off and really talk about one major thing. And that major thing, especially for memory stocks, is that the fundamental story around all of our memory stocks, Micron, SK Hynix, Samsung, if maybe let's say you own the Round Hill memory ETF, what have you, the fundamental story has not changed. HBM, high bandwidth memory, DRAM, NAND, all of that, the conditions are still in place for everything to exceed supply. But we saw a significant sell-off. We saw pretty much all of our AI stocks sell off, like I said, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And we're going to really talk about that and then kind of look at this coming week. Okay, so again, the fundamentals are very strong. The sell-off really looked like a profit-taking event, not a trend reversal. Now, we still have a lot of things at play. We still have the themes and the narratives at play, and those themes are, is CapEx spending going to slow? Is something going to fundamentally shift in that direction? Every single week, we see that little golden gem, if you will, kind of trotted out and discussed, and it's really fretted over and all that. And I'm not minimizing that, because if CapEx expenditures from the hyperscalers, major enterprise clients, big companies, if they do start to change their theme and their narrative, and we start to see, a shift in what they are going to do, then that is a significant discussion point and some variables that we need to talk about. But right here, right now, we're not seeing that. Okay. And so I really want to stress that. Okay. So let's kind of dig into this and look at what we've got here. So kind of looking over here on number one, again, the fundamental story. Let me zoom in on that just a little bit for you guys. You can kind of see that a little bit better. Okay. Yeah, the fundamental story has not changed, especially for memory. Okay, SK Hynix industry could face its worst memory shortage in 2027. We've heard that from the CEO. We've heard that from the CEO of Micron. Everybody is pretty much singing the same song. And that's specifically a quote coming from their CEO. Remember that demand is expected to stay well ahead of supply beyond 2030. That's really a fundamental scenario there. And so ultimately, what does this come down to? It comes down to higher prices being driven from Micron, SK Hynix, and Samsung, because quite frankly, let's call it what it is. They can charge those higher prices. Those higher prices help to vastly improve the margin structures associated with memory. We've really kind of gotten out of the cyclical nature of the memory business. Although again, Wall Street will trot that out every single week, almost it seems, and worry about that and fret over that. Fret's my new word of the day, by the way. And just continue to kind of create uncertainty around those two main narratives. Is memory still cyclical? No, it is not. Remember those strategic customer agreements that we've seen companies like Micron put into place, and SK Hynix has put those into place as well. All of those narratives are still intact. Those themes, those discussion points, they're still there, and don't lose sight of those is really what I'm trying to say. Okay, number two, right here. Recent sell-off was really profit-taking and not weakness. Now, there are some of you, there's some out there who would say, well, this has changed in the market, that's changed in the market. And really, if you're really watching the market, no, it's not. A lot of what we're seeing, though, here, guys, is speculation. It is speculation in the financial news networks, all the distribution channels like finance.yahoo and talking heads on the finance channels. It's speculation. Is CapEx expenditures going to slow? Is this going to change? What if companies don't do this? What if memory is still cyclical? What if, and what if, and what if? And I want to remind you that is speculation. Now, right now, speculation can drive sell-offs like we've seen. We have seen that, okay? So I'm just reminding you of that scenario. So still here on number two, TSMC reported strong earnings, but we saw a sell-off in the market. Why? Because TMC said one thing, and then they said that prices will most likely start to rise. and that triggered a sell-off. It really did, especially in the memory sector. Samsung reported strong results, but didn't quite like everything in their earnings report. Saw a sell-off, and that's where we're at. It's those expectations around everything coming out from the earnings and or the stories around these companies, and it's just really driving some of these sell-offs, because stocks sold off because of expectations. Expectations are extremely high around Micron, SK Hynix, Samsung, so forth. It's high around the chip stocks. We saw a significant sell-off in semiconductors, obviously, as well. Okay, so again, number 3, money did rotate right back into memory stocks. We saw SK Hynix, up 17%, Micron up 4.5+%. Memory stocks outperformed the broader tech sector. Get it right, Austin. Okay, and just remember, as you are getting ready for this week, remember that a lot of what we're seeing playing out is expectations around these stocks, but it's also speculation. It really is speculation. And kind of let's specifically talk about this week and what we're probably going to see. We're going to see some volatility. We're going to see, as we roll into the week, expectations being high, fear, uncertainty, concern. We're going to see those same old storylines continue to come out. We are going to see that. And so you need to understand that and go, okay, I'm prepared for that. And I will bring you back to a really simple thing. And that simple thing is like this right here, back to number 1, over here on number 1, and specifically the second bullet. Demand is expected to stay well ahead of supply beyond 2030. I will bring you to, I could stop the video right there and go, that's really where it comes down to, is that, remember, with how they're bringing fabrication facilities online, SK Hynix and Micron, Samsung, et cetera, they're bringing those fab facilities online, and they're also managing how and when they're going to ship those chips. And then the way that works is that as they ship, they recognize that revenue. And so you can guarantee that the executives from the management perspective are going to be managing supply associated with fabrication, manufacturing, but they're also going to be managing how they ship and how they ship and recognize that revenue to ultimately drive towards managing earnings on a quarter-by-quarter basis and managing expectations and all that kind of stuff. And again, remember the customer agreements, the 16 strategic customer agreements coming like from Micron, that's going to help manage that process as well. All those things in place, okay? So I just want you to kind of remember that as we roll into this week. Yeah, this week could be volatile, but if you also look at it more from a long-term standpoint, I always come back to kind of that second bullet point over here on number 1. Demand is expected to stay well ahead of supply. And I know that because there's strategic customer agreements, and I know as they roll forward that ultimately Micron and SK Hynix, specifically because you can buy and sell those here in the States now from a stock standpoint, especially obviously Micron, you always could, but SK Hynix, I think that's why I feel very comfortable with these investments from a long-term standpoint, at least obviously until 2028 and beyond, as long as we continue to see visibility and continue to see the earnings in line with what we're trying to drive to, and the trends and the themes and the narratives don't change. If we start to see major companies come out and say, okay, yeah, we are going to slow CapEx expenditures, we are going to slow some of this AI spend, then that's a different scenario, but we're not seeing that right now. Okay, kind of moving on and looking at number 4 here. Analysts keep raising price forecasts. UBS now expects DRAM prices to continue rising through 26. NAND prices continue increasing. HBM demand to grow another 90%. And you got to remember that memory goes beyond the hyperscalers. Memory goes beyond that. If you look at, like, for example, Micron, the deals they put together with General Motors and Ford, we're getting a lot of visibility into that. Is that memory chips go into everything. It's not just putting the memory chips onto the semiconductor chips that are going into the data centers. Remember that it's a much broader, bigger thing, and we're not even really talking about right now the memory demand for robotics, for the when the deployment of humanoid robotics, like the Tesla Optimus robot coming from Tesla, as we see that roll out. I mean, the demand for memory is going to be absolutely astronomical. And again, that goes to that point right there, number 4. HBM demand to grow another 90+%. We're going to see that demand grow and grow and grow over time. And ultimately, here's what we're looking at over here on the right-hand side, the outlook for this week. 60 to 70% memory stocks bounce and continue trending higher after last week's volatility. So we're looking at most likely definitely a north of 50+% and a 60 to 7% that we're looking at a pretty good week. There's a 20 to 30% chance that stocks trade sideways. Okay, that's fair. As investors wait for earnings and more data. That's always the case. It's always the expectation. And I think we're looking at a less than 10% chance that we could see a continuation or more of a market sell-off that drags the semiconductor sector lower despite strong fundamentals. And if we see the semiconductor continue to drag down, as an example, like we saw last week, that really had nothing to do with memory. It was a semiconductor sell-off that bled over and impacted memory stocks as well. Okay, so let's go back over here. So kind of looking at specifically Micron and SK Hynix as an example, right here, right down here at the very bottom, you see Micron. Again, we're very bullish, right? I am extremely bullish. I think we as a sector are very bullish. HBM demand remains extremely strong. Signing long-term supply agreements, those 16 strategic customer agreements, we know two of the main ones are General Motors, Ford. We don't have clear visibility because it's not been divulged. We can guarantee that some of those 16 are hyperscalers. We know that, and things of this nature. And here's another interesting point. We continue to kind of see the scenario or one of the trends or one of the storylines of companies are going to get out of their agreements with Micron. Okay, let's talk about that. Are they really? If I was a company and my business, let's just say, I'm just using it as an example, Ford, my product that I sell, one of the key components of it is obviously the entire electrical system in that vehicle. What's a core component of that? I mean, in just one component, it's memory. It's memory chips. You're saying, is Ford going to kill an agreement with Micron to no longer be at the front of the line to get those memory chips to go into their products so that they can sell it? Do you really believe that companies are going to walk away from these strategic agreements? No, they're not. But it's a storyline that we do see from Wall Street. These companies could cancel those agreements. You have to remember, ask yourself, is that company really going to cancel that agreement? Because these strategic customer agreements move those companies to the front of the line, as an example. So what I see is going to happen is that we're going to see even more strategic customer agreements coming from Micron, coming from SK Hynix. Why? Because the companies are lining up. They want to be essentially moved to the front of the line by signing these strategic agreements so that they can guarantee a supply of crucial components, memory chips, to go into their products so that they can sell their products and for their business. Just remember that. Okay, just remember that, because a lot of people lose sight of that. Oh my God, they're gonna Ford's gonna cancel it. Really? Come on. SK Hynix, strongest pure play. I think the SK is extremely pure play. Earnings report coming on July 29. Investors will watch for confirmation that HBM pricing and margins remain exceptional. I think we should see good things from SK Hynix. The only issue I have with what we're going to see there, and we've seen this time and time again, especially like with Taiwan Semiconductor, a lot of the sell-off we saw in memory was because SK Hynix on their executive earnings call mentioned that their pricing was going to go up, and everybody just freaked out. Okay. So we risk to watch as we roll into this week. Another broad market NASDAQ correction. Like yesterday, on Friday, everywhere you turned, it was, AI semiconductor, and AI is dragging the market lower. Yet SK Hynix bounced 17%. Micron bounced 4.5%. And the headlines were screaming all this bad stuff. And the NASDAQ was down 200 points. But if you looked, no, they weren't. There wasn't a broad market sell-off. There was at one point, but it all rebounded. And that's really, again, what I want to talk about. I don't think we're going to see profit taking. Profit taking seems to have already played itself out. We had major funds that had gotten in early to Micron and SK Hynix and AMD and NVIDIA and Intel. And we saw a massive amount of profit taking going on at a pretty large scale. We are waiting for earnings. Yes, we are. Okay. But again, if we see any negative news, or if we see the storylines and the narratives change from major hyperscalers and or a trend, major companies come out and say we're scaling back. That's a different story. That's a different narrative, and we will obviously address that as we roll in. Okay, so the big takeaway from this, very lower left, very bottom here on this graphic that I've built for you guys, is the AI memory super cycle is still intact. And I think it's going to continue. I think we're going to see the trend continue. We have visibility into via the strategic customer agreements and via production cycles and all this, that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's going to continue well past 2028 and into 2030. There simply is not the manufacturing capacity right now to deliver on the massive amount of demand. And I'll point you back to number 4 here on HBM. HBM demand is set to grow another 90% this year. Okay. Last week's sell-off may have been a reset, but not the beginning of the end. And I think that was the fear a little bit. And that fear is running rampant. It's because we've seen such massive valuation changes. We've seen such massive run up in these stocks over a period of the last year and so forth. So now there's that rampant fear in the market that's always seemed to be underpinning any storyline we see. Oh my God, is it about to end? And if you kind of take a step back and you take your emotions out of it and you just look at the market and you look at the things you see on this graphic, you can kind of go, okay, I have more visibility. I understand more at these things at play. Remember the story I told you about. Do you really think that companies are going to stop buying memory like Ford and General Motors? They're not going to stop buying memory. They have to have those components. They're crucial for them to manufacture their own products. And that storyline plays out across multiple sectors, multiple industries that are manufacturing products to deliver, to sell, obviously, to their customers. And always remember that and bring that back. Okay, so thanks for giving me a few minutes. I appreciate your time. I'm going to leave you with this. If you're interested in trying to make even more money selling stocks, let me show you this. This is my trading indicator, X1 Algo. This is the AMD chart. Look, this is a buy alert all the way up to the seller. And we had multiple buy and sells along the way. But in the last 105 days, 169%. The software literally telling you when to buy and when to sell. You see, as the chart goes up, you had these multiple buy and sell points along, and see how we had this sell off right here before we saw, AMD take a turn and sell there. And that's what the software does. It tells you how, it shows you and sends you these alerts. Literally, it'll send you a little pop-up alerts coming in on your phone, as an example, to be able to tell you when to buy and sell any stock you want. Just happens to be AMD, and lock in, 169%. Okay. So the question is, do you know when to buy and sell any of your stocks that you're trading? If you want to do some swing trading or put more short-term profit in your pocket, right? That's what this does. Okay. So, and it does it for about $40 a month is what it costs you. Now with the discounts, there's a link in the description below, and I'll pin a link to the comment as well. Pin comment. It's about $1.10 a day to use the software. There's a 30-day no questions asked, money back refund guarantee. So you can try it for 30 days. You don't like it, you cancel, get a refund easily. You send an email to my support team, they'll cancel and refund you. You're done. And in the members area every single week, there is live coaching, and there's a private chat community there to support you as well. So links are out down there. Go give it a look, and I'll see you later. Take care.